Big sweep for the Yankees. Definitely wasn't something that I was expecting. The Yankees had lost 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays in the previous 3 series. So they had been 3-6 going into this, and we're coming off a 3-game losing streak, a really tough Sunday loss to the Phillies. But Brian Cashman was present in Buffalo for this series, and I wonder if that maybe lit a little bit of a fire under them. I'm not giving him credit. I more mean the fact that, maybe a little bit more on high alert. But the games in this series had a similar theme, and these were all close wins and games in which they came back. These were all, to varying degrees, comeback wins. And Aaron Boone really pushed almost all of the right buttons in this series. You have key pinch hits by Clint Frazier in the first game, Gary Sanchez in the second game, and Chris Gittens in the third game. Those were monumental. 2 of them being game-winning hits. The other one was a very big tack-on hit. So we'll get into all that. And, yeah, I think it's big. Do I have my doubts? Yes. But no question that if they are to, get going here, you could look back at this series as a turning point. And Toronto, who I, think pretty highly of, certainly on the offensive side, they were kind of held in check a bit. And the fielding wasn't great. The base running wasn't great. It was kind of like Yankee baseball. And the situational hitting wasn't great either. But let's get into all 3 of these games, because they were definitely, a lot of, some of these games you go through and it's not a whole lot going on. There was a lot in each of these games. So in game 1, Jordan Montgomery versus Hyun-Shin Ryu, which is an advantage for Toronto. And it pretty much played out that way between the starters. It's kind of things turned a little bit later in the game. But Montgomery, not a very good outing for Montgomery. And he's been a bit inconsistent. He pretty much, with the way things are now in the rotation, he's definitely the 3. But, yeah, he kind of ran into some trouble in this one. Didn't pitch particularly well. And, basically your basic versus lefty Ryu lineup for the Yanks, meaning Gittens is in. At this point, what was interesting was Clint Frazier, who, like I said, would come off the bench. He is basically a bench guy at this point. Things can change very quickly, but Frazier basically lost that left field spot to Andujar, but it can always be an ever-changing situation. But in the first, the Blue Jays would get on the board early as Marcus Semien would lead off walk to Semien. You never want to have that happen. Then he steals second. Then Bo Bichette walks. Then Vlad Guerrero walks. So long story short, 3 straight walks to start the game for Montgomery. But as kind of was a theme in the series, Toronto doesn't really take advantage of that opportunity as Teoscar Hernandez hits a sac fly, which advances, Semien scores, Bichette moves to third, and then Yankee killer Randall Grichuk pops out, and Lourdes Gurriel grounds out. So it could have been a lot worse, and it stays at 1-0. Top of the second, Gary Sanchez. Sanchez, with a leadoff homer, starts the inning off, ties it up at 1, and his good play at the plate continues. And, you'll see that manifest itself throughout this series. So, let's see here. In the third, Bo Bichette hits a leadoff home run to start that third inning. Dead center field gives the Jays a 2-1 lead. But the Yankees tied up again. As with 2 outs in the inning, the first hit and first homer of the career of Chris Gittens. And Gittens would be heard from again in the series, but it was great to see. He had that foul homer in Minnesota, which, again, would have been like a first hit, first home run situation. So Gittens, key game-tying homer. But in the bottom of the fourth, it really unravels for Montgomery. As with 1 out, he walks Joe Panik. You never want to do that. Panic's not a great hitter at this stage in his career. It's lefty-lefty, but he does that. And then with 2 outs, Santiago Espinal gets a single, and Espinal had a good series too. Then Marcus Semien gets an infield single, so it's bases loaded, 2 out, and then it's a pass ball by Gary Sanchez. And it was a little bit of a rough go for Sanchez behind the plate, as it usually kind of always is. So you can live with him more when he's coming through at the plate, but behind the plate, catching, not so great. So pass ball for Sanchez, Toronto takes the lead, and then it's a 2-run single for Bo Bichette. Toronto takes a 5-2 lead. So at this point, I'm thinking, yeah, Yanks are done. But they would fight back. As in the 6th, with 1 out, Gio singles, Sanchez doubles. 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, and Andujar gets an RBI ground out. And again, I know it's not just Andujar, believe me, but this reminds me of it. Andujar, as much as I like him, and honestly, he was one of my favorite players in 2018, and I like what I'm seeing from him. For someone that really, honestly, has such good plate coverage, he doesn't have plate discipline, coverage. Like, he can make contact with the ball. He has been absolutely dreadful with runners on third less than 2 out, and just in general runners in scoring position. It's been bad, but at least he does get an RBI ground out, makes it 5-3. Then Montgomery gets an out in the 6th, and they replace him with Luis Sessa, and Sessa would get out of that inning. So it is still 5-3. And then in the 7th, Ryu is gone, and Anthony Castro comes in. Oh boy, Anthony Castro was a key to the Yankees' success in games 1 and 3. Castro gives up a leadoff home run to Brett Gardner. And I actually, not that I want Gardner to be like the rest of year center fielder. Yeah, bats have been better lately for Gardner. Again, credit where it's due. Gardner, leadoff home run in that 7th. And so that cuts it to 5-4. Then LeMahieu doubles. And then there's a wild pitch to LeMay, which moves LeMay over to 3rd. Then Judge strikes out. Bit of a rough series. Judge is not really feeling it at the plate lately. He's a very streaky hitter. And the good thing about Judge is that you still get that good defense, which I'm kind of teasing here. But at the plate, bit of a rough go, I feel, lately. And then the way the Yankees score a lot of the times is a wild pitch. And that's exactly what happens. Another wild pitch, and LeMahieu scores, ties it up at 5. And so, yeah, big, ties it up. Loaizaga, who has just been so good. Honestly, Loaizaga, I'm not sure if he flies under the radar. I think he probably does. Loaizaga has been just straight up excellent for this bullpen. And I think unexpectedly, too. Like, he's been kind of a swing guy in his Yankee career. I guess last year he started to solidify himself as a strictly relief guy. But Loaizaga pitches a scoreless 7th. And in the 8th inning, top of the 8th, Andujar starts it off with a leadoff single. Then Gittens strikes out. And then they pinch, and this is, again, Boone pushing some right buttons. And Wade pinch runs for Andujar. And I don't know why Wade didn't pinch run for Andujar like before the Gittens strikeout, but it doesn't matter. Frazier pinch hits for Gardner because the lefty Tim Meza was in. So this forces their hand to then bring in Jordan Romano. So Romano, the righty, who's been pretty good this year, comes in to face Frazier. And while Frazier's up, Tyler Wade's still second. So already taking advantage of that situation where he pinch runs for Andujar. And then Clint Frazier, who it's been a rough year for Clint. Like I said, he lost that starter's job, gets a key RBI double. Down the line, pinch hitting, gives the Yankees the lead that they would not lose. 6-5 Yanks. We move to the 8th. Zach Britton. This is where, in this game, things got interesting. Britton, who had pitched well in Philly in his first outing of the season, would, with 1 out, walk Joe Panik. And that is just not something that you want to do. Like I said, another lefty-lefty situation. And so Kevin Biggio pinch runs for Panik. And Riley Adams gets a single. So again, Panik walk, Adams a soft-hitting catcher. Not great. So first and second, 1 out. He gets Espinal to fly out, and it was hit pretty well. And then he walks Marcus Semien. So bases loaded, 2 out, Bo Bichette, full count. And Bichette lines out to right. So that got really interesting. Britton was not really sharp that inning, but they get out of there. So then, bottom of the ninth, it's a good 1-2-3 from Chapman, but keep this in mind just for now. It's Guerrero, Hernandez, and Grichuk. He gets them out 1-2-3. Yankees with a very good, unexpected comeback win. This was nice. 6-5 Yanks wins. Some big hits. I mean, Clint, of course, with the big hit, but just nice to rally back. I mean, Gardner gets a home run there. They got a little bit lucky with the wild pitch, tying the game. But Montgomery was not great, especially in that fourth, but he was able to hold it enough. And then the pen between Sessa, Loizaga, Britton, and Chapman get it done. So nice win there. Game 2. Garrett Cole on the bump. Cole versus Ross Stripling. Now, this was the game that I looked at and said, all right, this should be, you hope, the win. But this would be another really close, interesting game. And in this one, Higashioka, and there was some question to this, Higashioka catching Cole. And it makes sense because Sanchez can't catch every game anyway. So it becomes more interesting, like, I guess, in a playoff situation. But I'm fine with that at this stage. Higashioka would catch Cole. And, Odor versus the righty, Stripling. So, and Cole in this one, this was impressive for me. Cole only gets 4 strikeouts, but he ends up going 8 innings. Like, I liked what I saw from Garrett Cole amidst all this spider tack and sticky stuff. He has been, ever since, he's been completely fine. I mean, I'm not going to complain with 8 innings, 2 runs. That's the beauty of Garrett Cole, though, is that if he's not getting the strikeouts, it's all well and good. He can navigate through, and that's exactly what he did in this one. And the offense didn't really have his back until it did late. So the runs actually start quickly. In the first, LeMahieu reaches on an error by Panic. Then Aaron Judge singles. Then Glaber walks. So an early bases loaded no out situation, and Giancarlo gets a sac fly, but then Urshela and Andujar both fly out. Guys that I like, Urshela and Andujar, but guys that haven't necessarily come through runners in scoring position. So only 1-0 when it could have been a lot more than that. Then leading off the game for Toronto, Marcus Semien, solo shot, 1-1 off Cole. And yeah, he didn't really look great in the first. It could have been worse than that, but he's able to get out of it with just that homer. And yeah, this was definitely like the best pitchers duel of the series. And, Stripling strikes out the side in the second and, gets a couple strikeouts in the fourth. And eventually, in the bottom of the fifth, Kevin Biggio gets a solo homer off of Cole. So it's 2-1 Toronto. Let's see here. In the sixth, it's a little interesting. So with 2 outs, Stanton reaches on an error by Panic, and Ross Stripling just absolutely shows up Panic. You don't normally see that on a baseball field. And Stripling apologized after the game profusely, and rightly so for apologizing. Panic, didn't really push back or give him a hard time. He seemed to accept the apology, but Stripling is absolutely ripped into Panic. And it didn't matter. Toronto Yanks did not score that inning, but I thought that was interesting. In the top of the 7th, this is where Boone does the right thing. Andujar, again, should be noted, key leadoff single, just as he did in the 8th the game before, and he's done a good job of this, of kind of getting the rallies going. Then Odor strikes out looking, and then they pinch hit Sanchez for Higashioka. What does he do? He would hit what would be a game-winning 2-run homer, pinch hit for Sanchez off of Stripling. So really clutch home run by Sanchez, his 10th homer of the year, and hopefully keeps it going. It's been good. Again, my expectations for him are not super high, so I like what I'm seeing. And so, yeah, that would be, Stripling would then strike out Gardner, and then he'd be done for the night. Cole gets through the 8th. So Garrett Cole would really do a fantastic job of just kind of getting better, and the velocity was still there. Again, very good stuff from Garrett Cole, as you would normally expect. So let's just go straight to the bottom ninth. Remember how I said last game against Chapman, it was Guerrero, Hernandez, Grichuk. It would be those same three again. But this time it was a lot more interesting. Very. Guerrero singles, Hernandez doubles, second and third no out already. So Chapman, who had come through the night before, but also against Minnesota, blew a save. And then one of the Philly games, didn't really get it done in extra innings. I have less of a problem with that one, but he's been, a little shaky lately. And it seemed like it was going to happen again. So Grichuk strikes out, though. This was very key. So it's second and third, one out, and then Santiago Espinal pinch hits for Panic. Espinal on a full count hits the ball back to Chapman. And they have Guerrero kind of hung up, but Chapman makes a mistake by throwing it much too quickly to Sanchez. He needed to wait and run him down. So Sanchez then luckily makes a good throw to Urshela, who tags out Guerrero, and they call him out. I got to be honest, it looked like he might have been safe, and whatever they were going to call on the field, they were going to stick with. There was no conclusive evidence the other way. Luckily, it was called out, and so Guerrero's out of there. So from second and third, no out, to first and second, 2 out. Then what happens is when Lourdes Gurriel is up, there's a play where, and it ends up not making a difference, but it was a long delay. They said that he fouled it off. And then Sanchez was attending to, I think the home plate up might have been C.B. Buckner. Like, it looked like it was a strike that Sanchez just missed. Like, it was a swing and a miss that went to the backstop. And Sanchez, instead of going for the ball, is seeing how the ump is. Either that's brilliant by Sanchez to, like, kind of deke everyone, or he just truly thought that it was a foul ball. Either way, it works out for the Yankees, and after a long at-bat, Gurriel lines out to center. So that was a situation where the Yankees somehow get out of there. Chapman comes through. Wasn't pretty, but another one-run win late. 3-2. Game 3. And I say this a lot, and it's that the Yankees can't seem to get those sweeps. They just can't do it. No matter how they try, and not just the sweeps, but just the last game of series, it doesn't normally work at all. This would be between Michael King and TJ Zoik. Two guys that, in my opinion, are not great, and they didn't really pitch great. So, bit of an even matchup. Of note, Gary Sanchez would bat 5th in this one, which I thought was actually deserved. Gio has been struggling a bit lately, and I think Gio batting 6th actually helped him in this game. So they move Sanchez up. Gio moves down to the 6th spot. And Tyler Wade gets in there. So Wade basically gets the start over Odor. Yeah. So Yanks early. So the Yankees get another triple play. I should have started off with that. I mean, there's just been so much going on in the series. Another triple play this year for the Yanks, but it was a lot different than the one against the White Sox. If you remember, that was kind of just your regular 5-4-3 triple play. This one was just a ton of bad base running. Bad start for King. Simeon walks. Bichette gets a single. Bit of, he didn't hit it hard, but it's a single. And so then it's a wild pitch. Second and third no out again, if you remember. Like I just said, in the 9th inning, the game before, they had second and third no outs and didn't score. Well, it would happen again. Guerrero grounds out to King. He throws it to LeMahieu at first. They get Guerrero out. The problem was Simeon at third didn't go home. Bichette at second went to third. So they kind of had Bichette caught. So LeMahieu throws it to Torres. Then they throw it home, but Simeon charges for home. Then Sanchez throws it to Gio. He throws it to Gio, and they get Simeon out of third. And then Bichette tries to go to third from second. They throw to Torres, and they tag him out. So triple play. They reviewed the Bichette out, and that's another one that looked pretty close, but you couldn't overturn it. So amazing. Another triple play by the Yanks. Really bad base running by Bichette and Semien on this one, but we'll take it. Top of the second, another inning where it seems like the Yankees could really do something big, but it doesn't necessarily happen that way. Urshela doubles. Gardner gets an infield single, so it's first and third. And then Andujar, who again just doesn't really come through in these spots, gets lucky as he reaches on a fielder's choice. TJ Zoik, he grounds out to the pitcher. Zoik tries to throw Gardner out at second, and he was going to hold Urshela and try to get Gardner at second, and he throws it away. So the run scores in Urshela, and Gardner goes to third. So it's 1-0 Yanks, first and third, no out. And then Wade grounds out to Espinal, and not good base running by Gardner, who they get Gardner out at home. Or I don't remember if it was a rundown. Gardner's out. And a bad job by Wade not to get anything done there. Then LeMahieu walks, though. So it's bases loaded, 1 out. And unfortunately, Judge strikes out and Gleyber grounds out. So a really bad job there by the Yanks. We move to the top of the third. And Giancarlo Stanton singles. And then after Gary Sanchez pops out, Gio Urshela, who had a really big night at the plate and on the field, gets a 2-run homer, gives the Yanks a 3-0 lead. But unfortunately, Michael King, you knew that was going to rear its ugly head. It does. In the bottom of the third, with 1 out, Espinal walks. He just can't do that. And then Reese McGuire. Blue Jays catchers seem to kill the Yanks. I don't know what it is, but Reese McGuire gets an RBI double. Then Marcus Semien singles, so it's first and third, and Bo Bichette gets an RBI ground out. Luckily, then Guerrero would ground out, so it could have been, the Yankees keep the lead at 3-2. But that lead wouldn't last too long. Zoik would be done after 3. King pitches a scoreless fourth. And in the bottom of the fifth, he gets Tellez to ground out, and then Espinal gets an infield single. Oh, let me go back. So in that bottom of the third, when Bichette got that RBI ground out, Gleyber didn't look right. At first, I thought it might have been some sort of leg, maybe like a twisted an ankle type of thing, but they say he ended up leaving the game with a lower back stiffness. So Odor comes in to play second. They move Wade over to short. After the game, Boone says that Gleyber, it seems like it'll be all right. I kind of take that with a grain of salt. I wouldn't be shocked if he's not going to play tomorrow night against Oakland, but by all indications, it doesn't seem like it's anything too serious. He did walk off on his own, but backs, it's tricky. So, yeah. Bottom of the fifth. It would be a 1-out single for Espinal. Wade, it was a tough play for Wade. It certainly wasn't an error. Wade, not with a great throw on the run, and so that happens. So Licky replaces King, and the bad fielding kind of continues. It would be ruled a double eventually. It's a double by Reese McGuire on a play where Miguel Andujar probably should have made. Again, he's a converted, he went from infield to outfield, so he's been all right out there, all's considered. But this is not loving the fielding on those back-to-back plays, even though neither of them were errors. And then Marcus Semien gets an RBI ground out. So Licky, King Licky combo, but Toronto ties it up there. Then in the bottom of the sixth. So Anthony Castro comes in the top of the sixth, but that's not we'll get to him later. Vlad Guerrero singles off a Licky, and then they bring Chad Green in. Just kind of weird to me. And let it be known, I don't love how Chad Green's been pitching, but Licky the lefty against Guerrero, so what, if he got Guerrero out, then you were going to keep him in for Grichuk? I don't know what the idea was there, but I didn't like it. Guerrero singles, they then bring in Green, then it's a pass ball by Gary Sanchez. That's 2 pass balls by Sanchez in this series. And then Randall Grichuk gets an RBI single off of Green, gives the Blue Jays a 4-3 lead, and then a really key play happens next, and it's Kevin Biggio flying out as Judge robbed him of a 2-run homer. Flat out robbed them. I mean, between Judge's height and just the dexterity and the way he jumped, no one else could have done that. This was excellent, and it would have been 6-3, and it saved the game, honestly. And it saved Chad Green's bacon. So that would be it for that inning. 4-3 Toronto. Then at the top of the 7th, the Yanks get it going. Ruben Odor gets a leadoff single, and then Giancarlo Stanton, 2-run homer, opposite field, gives the Yanks a 5-4 lead, which they would keep. And then Gary Sanchez singles and Gio Urshela singles. So 4 straight hits off of Anthony Castro. He's now out of the game. They bring in Tim Meza, the lefty. Gardner does sack bump. So 2nd and 3rd, 1 out for Andujar, who grounds out to the pitcher. So I don't think I'm like, I think it's fair for me to be upset. Again, another, like, no advance. Or Andujar grounds out. Stays 5-4. 2nd and 3rd, 2 outs, and another button pushed correctly by Aaron Boone as Chris Gittens pinch hits for Tyler Wade. I didn't even, usually as I'm going along, I'm quick to kind of say, oh, pinch run here, pinch it there, whatever, or don't do it. I didn't even think of this one, but it works out. Huge 2-run single for Chris Gittens. I can't say enough how this was such an important hit to give the Yankees that breathing room, and the Yankees take a 7-4 lead. So good to see for Gittens, and a great move by Boone. So 7-4, we move to the bottom of the 7th. Green is still in, and Espinal strikes out, and then Reese McGuire singles. So Green is out. Like I said, I think Green is dropping in that pecking order with Britton back, and this guy coming in, Jonathan Loaisiga. Loaisiga gets 2 outs in that 7th, and then in the 8th, pitches a scoreless inning. Gets a couple of strikeouts as well. 5 outs for Loaisiga. Love what he's been doing. Then at the top of the 9th, the Yankees had another one. Sanchez with the lead off, walks to start the inning. And then Urshela strikes out, but actually, and he had already had 3 hits on the night. It was a 2-run homer, but it was just foul. Originally, it was, they called it a home run, but it was foul. But what could have been a really huge night for Gio. Then Gardner walks. Then there's a wild pitch. And guess who's up? Andujar, 2nd and 3rd, 1 out. Luckily, he walks because then Chris Gittens gets a sac fly. So Chris Gittens, back-to-back productive at-bats, gives the Yanks an 8-4 lead. Britton comes in the 9th, gets it done. Yanks sweep. And so that's big. So it ends up being a 5-3 road trip. But more importantly, just the AL East has been a problem for the Yanks. The Blue Jays are key competition, and they get that sweep. Much, much needed. Much needed. Like, hopefully this can get them going. But real quick, Oakland, who's been really good. This is a 43-27 Oakland team. And you think, oh, well, maybe Oakland's better at home than the road, like just because of that they tend to be. They're very good on the road. Extremely good. This is not going to be easy. And the matchups, James Caprillion, former Yankee prospect who was in the Sonny Gray deal. So it was a long time coming. He had battled injuries, but Caprillion now with the big club, and he's been pretty good for Oakland this year. That's going to be interesting. There'll be a lot of talk about that. Like if Caprillion shuts the Yankees down, that'll be a talking point, especially because Sonny Gray wasn't good at all as a Yank, but that's here nor there. And it's against Jameson Taillon. It's been a struggle for Taillon this year. He has been better at home than on the road. So there's hope that maybe a Yankee Stadium with also what they're calling it reopening day with a full capacity crowd, maybe Taillon comes through. And then it'll be in game 2. Chris Bassett, who's 7-2 on the year against Domingo Germán, who's coming off a really rough outing against the Phillies. So hopefully Germán bounces back. Bassett has been, like I said, 7-2, good ERA. And then it's the last game is a battle of lefties. Sean Manaea, who has an ERA below 3, he's 6-2 against Jordan Montgomery. And for whatever the reason is, Yankees seem to win Montgomery starts. I guess he does a good job of kind of just keeping him in the game. I think they're like 10-3 in games that he started. So the hope here is to win the series. 2 out of 3 would be excellent. Like, I always like to predict, and I was shocked, pleasantly surprised with that Toronto sweep. I would not accept the sweep again. In fact, like this, I think this goes 2 out of 3. I just don't know who takes it. Hopefully it's the Yanks that can get it as they go back to the Bronx. And the vibe is getting a little bit better, but this will be a big series in the Bronx against the A's.